Welcome to the Foil Life Podcast, where we talk about foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy these great sports.
All right, fellas. Mike, nice to see you. Steff, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Good to be on again.
Yes, and I'm very happy to see you, Mike. I know you went through enough last year with health. I'm super happy to see you back here and roaring again and chasing again.
Oh, back to 100%, so I'm stoked. Yeah, it was a pretty gnarly experience last June, sort of brain hemorrhage. And doctor couldn't tell me why it happened, or the surgeons couldn't tell me why it happened, but said luckily there's zero chance of it happening again. So every day is a good day. Definitely. Mm-hmm. And it definitely affected our parawing development as well. So it's a bit of a shame, but because I was obviously one of the advocates about the program. So
fair. No, and I guess it gave you guys a little bit more time to do a bit more research, because we're looking at your timeline here and super fascinated to get into that, into who came up with this idea and the design on your end.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so do you want to hear a bit of a background?
Sure.
Essentially, it comes down to I'm a testing team rider for North, more testing equipment, and it's specific really around the fabric wings, less so on the boards and foils, but I use those to make sure that everything's being paired up correctly. So it's more the development of the wings and helping the design team feedback and iterations throughout the process.
I was just going to say, I've known Steff. I think we first went kiting, 26, 27, 28 years ago?
Late 90s, whatever.
Late 90s, yeah. Just to give a little bit of background about Steff, he's obviously a great friend and friend of the brand as well, just on a personal level. But Steff and I have known each other, as we said, since late 90s. We're very lucky to be involved in kiteboarding and sort of first handful, probably top 50 people, or first 50 people in the world, 100 people in the world to get into the sport. We were very lucky that Peter Lynn was just down the road in New Zealand as a kite company, one of the OGs. And Stefan's mum was in the business. So Steff literally grew up in a kite factory.
Yeah.
No way.
So that's, I mean, it's, there's photos of my father flying kites with Peter Lynn in the early 70s. Long before I was born. And so those who don't know who Peter Lynn is, he's seen as one of the pioneers or...
Granddad
of kite traction, kite propulsion. He was... we lived in the same town. And
he was a pioneer.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And so his... by the 80s, he was quite interested in kite boating, kite sailing, and through that process he developed, he's the inventor of kite buggying. So that was a bit of a side project from what his real main focus was of kite sailing. And then in the 90s he started making the world's biggest kites, and at the moment the largest kite is, I think it's 1,200 square meters, or about 13,000 square feet. And that's
strap a twin tip onto that one.
Well, yeah, it's they're all land based. Those biggest kites are land based kites. They're not for the water, but they're they cost about $100,000 US. And so I've been involved with flying those or promoting those at different times. But in the '88, Peter's son Pete, he thought about going kite skiing, and so he shot across the local lake Clearwater, and kind of Peter didn't really think it was going to work, so he says, and so that was kite skiing, and the first time I had a go was in '92, and that was kneeboarding. So skiing was seen as a little bit too tricky, and whoever wanted to have a crack at it could. But by that stage, I was 12, and they were basically the kites were a delta shaped. They were called an Excalibur. They're about 2 meter wingspan, and you'd stack them up, 2 or 3 of them behind one another, or maximum up to 6 kites. They were essentially what we would call hot launched. We didn't know anything about the wind window, or no one said to me about park the kite up at 12 or 6 or whatever to slow down. They were hot launched by a couple of people. Peter was flying the kite on land. He was kind of rugby tackled with the because he would shoot off downwind as it was hot launched. People would grab him, drag him out into the water. My father was holding me up on a kneeboard, and my father was about waist deep, and Peter would hand the handles to me and say, "Don't crash it." And so you basically shoot off down the lake. It was about a K down to it's cross shore. So you end up on the lake on the other side.
That's crazy stories from you, but also like the Peter Lynn one I heard about with himself. He literally tied himself to a tree. Had a rope around his waist with the skis, with the kite in his hands, and then they cut the rope and he just shoot off downwind on the skis. It was nuts, absolutely nuts. And that was kind of the birth of. I mean, a lot of people don't realise the innovation that came from Ashburton, in halfway up the South Island and in the bottom of the world in New Zealand, pre-internet days.
That's unreal. That's unreal. Yeah, so in essence, they were like long line parawings from back then. There you go. There's the birth of it.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. So they, by the time kiteboarding came around in the mid-90s, there was essentially 3 different types of kites. There was a Whippaker, inflatable Whippaker, who licensed out to Nash, and there was the Peter Lynn. And the Lynn kites were about half the price of the others. So if people were getting into the sporty, Peter quite quickly had it was a small percentage, but or a small amount of users, but he had quite a big share of the market.
We all started on the old sea quads and buggies in the sort of mid-90s, and that's what led us into the getting onto the water. So you had those kite skills and that depower ability, not a lot, but and I mean, you literally, was no harness. You clap your hands and the harness would slip off your back, and that was your safety relief.
That's right. Yeah. How quick you could lift your arms was your safety
pretty
relief.
much. Especially when you're a K out to sea, it was a long swim.
Yeah.
A lot of swimming.
Yeah.
Times have changed, haven't they?
They sure have.
Yeah.
Sure have. But it's been amazing just having that Steff's experience, from those early days of trying so many different things. And then you were kind of working with Pep as well. And I guess Pep's our wing kite designer.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so I started working for Peter from the late 80s, sweeping floors, cutting fiberglass sticks and that type of thing after primary school, so as about a 10-year-old. But as kiteboarding kicked off, then I started working for him a bit more full-time. And the kites were manufactured. So the R&D team was in NZ, but the kites were manufactured in China via a Dutch company. And for the Dutch company, that's where Pepijn he was working for that company, and he's now the kite designer for North. So 25 years old later, Pepijn and I are back working on kite products, so it's kind of
full circle.
Yeah. It was pretty funny when Mike rang me up one day and said, "Oh, hey, there's this Dutch kite designer. He's now working for us. His name's Pepijn." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know him pretty well."
It's cool to see like how much history and depth goes into a company such as North, right? And how many, and this is that said for a lot of companies, but it's really cool to get some of those backstories in to find out a little bit, learn a bit about more how you got started, Steff, and how much experience you bring in and why you're working in the job that you're working. And then how you bring in all of that stuff into the design of a new product. 'Cause there's so many things, especially in this one, right? There's so many things that A, could go wrong, or B, could go right, and we don't know what the future is going to look like yet, because everybody's starting to come out with their little various versions. Some, they tweak this area, some tweak that area. But it's a pretty fun sport. Like, I just started parawinging in La Ventana in the wintertime. Awesome. It took a little bit of an adaptation period, but I ended up riding, like, I was on either the 1230 surf, and I actually hopped down. My favorite one was the 830 surf and the 185.
Such a nice wing.
I needed it, amazing wing, and I needed a bit of power, but as soon as I got up, I had such an easier time going upwind, cruising down, like I wasn't getting overfoiled. And it was a super fun time on that and just learning all the basics. And and we're just curious to find out, when did this kind of idea start with you guys? When do you start working on this kind of first initial concept?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the geography of New Zealand. We have two islands, a North Island, South Island, and in the middle there's a Cook Strait. It's about 40 or 50 k's wide. And in January 22, a friend and myself crossed it. Wing foiling. So it had been foiled before. It had been kite foiled. It had been windsurfed in the 70s. And yeah, so after COVID, or during COVID, it was kind of like, man, what would you do if you could get out of COVID lockdown? It was like, oh, let's go across the Cook Strait. So when we got out,
Steff is a bit batshit crazy, by the way.
We waited for
no safety boats, obviously, right?
No, we had one actually,
and
that was
thank God.
So we drove down to Wellington, and from Wellington we had a friend with a boat who took us over to the South Island. We got up at like 6 a.m. in the morning, drove across. It was relatively calm, and then we waited for the wind to build, and then we came back with their support. But to be honest, we were planning on foiling side by side back with this boat support. But in reality, what happened was one of us would drop off foil and the other one would just keep on going. And so this boat was kind of, at times 2-5 k's from, transitioning between the two of us. And at times, I'd look back or I was looking in front at times, but this boat was just really small, and thinking, man, if, you kind of, and you're just on one tack, right? You're just like, it was the first time and the only time I've ever gone foiling for multiple hours just on one tack. And so you're kind of looking at everything and you're going, oh, how's my muscles? Is something going to start to cramp up on me here? You start looking at all the equipment going, oh shit, what could go wrong?
Can I just interrupt here? Because I don't know if you know, but the Cook Strait between North Island and South Island is notorious for gale force winds, incredible currents and tides, because New Zealand's so long and thin, and it's got this little gate. So you can imagine all the currents and the tides and the danger of that strait, and his steps blasting across.
It calls, right?
Exactly.
It does.
And so I started looking at the wing that I was holding on to, and maybe about a month earlier, I'd been out on another wing, and it had a pinhole in the strut. And over that session, it started to go flat, and I was kind of touching it with my thumb, and just to make sure I had still had pressure. But anyway, I started thinking about, I need a second canopy here to pull out and use. I thought about, do you take a pump? Well, that doesn't help if if your foil goes through your canopy or your leading edge or whatever. You need a completely separate power system.
Safety device.
Yeah, safety device. And I started to think about skydivers, how they have an emergency chute that they pull out, right? They cut the first one away and they pull out another one. So when I started thinking about that methodology, I very quickly went to a single skin kite that had no, it wasn't ram air or anything. It had to be a single skin.
Traction kite.
Traction kite. It didn't have to be pretty, but it had to get you up on foil. It had to get you back to land. So you could self-rescue. That's really where the birth of a Parawing was seeded, really. And I started messaging Peter Lynn, and he sent me up a couple of samples of kites that he had that kind of broadly matched what I was looking for, and I used those and tested those out. And it took it definitely didn't work straight away. And you're kind of going, what, am I just wasting my time? Is it? But yeah, actually the first time I went out and used and successfully got up on foil, I went out. It was the same summer where those drogues, the sea anchor, is that what they were called, an anchor? So I made up a couple of those, and so I went out on my, it was a North Loft. It was a big green canopy, 7 meter. Went out and I went upwind a couple of 100 meters off the beach, and I set that off so it was on its anchor, and then I pulled out this the single skin Parawing, what we'd now call a Parawing, and I got up and got riding. That was blue, and I was able to get up, and I went downwind a little bit, and then I'd pack it away and I'd paddle back to the canopy, or back to the loft. And when I came in off from that session, there was a guy who had been out windsurfing as well, and he came up to me and he said, "Oh, where's the other guy?" And I said to him, "Well, what are you talking about?" And he said, "Oh, there's a guy out there on a blue canopy." And I said, "Oh, no, that was me." And he kind of looked at me like, "Oh, what the hell are you doing? Like, you don't take out two wings." But that was just the way that I could kind of quickly test something and, self-rescue myself to get back with the loft that was on the anchor. So, yeah. The next day I went to do a downwinder for like 5Ks with another guy, Sam Kaiman Cowell, a downwinder guy from around our area. And I didn't get up on foil. I absolutely sucked. I ended up going back to the beach and running back to get just a normal pump up wing, right? So
yeah, it
worked one day and it didn't work the next. So you're kind of scratching your head thinking, what were the conditions that were working yesterday and not today? And, you kind of, yeah.
Oh, and just put in context, I mean, Steff's full-time job, he's a geological engineer, but engineering background. So this is kind of fun for him. So he literally, I think he enjoys putting himself in these situations.
Well, you have to get the data.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you need data. So that started back in 2022?
Yeah, by the time I was actually up on foil and riding, that was in 23. And that was about the time that my first daughter was born. So things kind of went on the back burner a little bit at that point. But around 6 months later, on social media, we saw the pocket wing came out. And that was awesome. I was really stoked to see that because
we both were. I mean, like we both got frothing on that. It's like, oh shit, here we go, surfing the endless wave. Don't need a paddle. Doesn't get much better.
Yeah, so that was something which definitely showed that it was that there was a bit more. People were thinking about it for different directions, and we at that stage we were flying on a horizontal bar, so it looked like they had set it up on two handles or toggles. We were flying on a horizontal bar, kind of similar to a trainer kite for kiteboarding. It was functional. It could you could pull it out, you could launch it, you could get up on foil, and it was really stable, very, very stable.
We called it the tow kite.
We did, yeah.
In the beginning, before the Parawing or the naming convention from BRM, we were ready to launch it and call it the tow kite.
Yeah.
I got sick.
Can I ask why it went from a horizontal bar? Because that was my first impression of what I thought was going to happen, and then it went to a vertical. Is there something that happened there that you guys figured it would be better one way than the other?
Yeah,
well, it was when we benchmarked the BRM. Honestly, the BRM came out. We were lucky to get one of the first ones, and just like shout out to Greg as well, as always. Like a real true inventor. Mad respect for him. Everything is done with sort of strutless kites and everything he always does. We really respect what he's done. Yep. So, and we benchmark a lot of the products. So for us, it was like, we designed this to go across the wind and downwind. It had a little bit of upwind, but not a lot. And then we kind of went, shit, we need to go back to the drawing board, because that really changed our perspective as, we'd like to create a parawing that goes upwind a little bit more efficiently. So we kind of went back to the drawing board almost kind of late last year or mid last year. But
and it just gave it a little bit more, it was already seeming like a bit of a quirky kind of aspect of foiling, and so we were trying to keep something relatively quite simple, and this seemed, having the vertical bar seemed like it was getting a bit more complex, and we had various versions of different bar styles, but as the vertical bar or the BRM started to create a bit of momentum, then it was being accepted. That was the main thing. Could people go out and use it? And that was our main concern, was we wanted to have something that was user friendly.
Steff had this boiling away in the background, but I think as soon as we saw that BRM and the success and the use, being able to go upwind, to be able to ride swell. I think Greg designed it not for downwinding, but just for going and riding swell at Kanaha and stuff. So I think, from that, it really opened our eyes with the possibility. I think that's when Steff and Papain got really sort of went hard out. And we really kind of took it from a concept to really see how far we could push it.
Yeah.
Because initially when I tried the one I tried last winter, it was just like a joystick, like you're flying,
Yeah.
and then you're up and down as soon as you throttle up, as soon as you throttle down, and then the only thing that one was lacking a little bit was the depower V1s. You know, across the board, everybody was working on different things, and some were good here and some were better there, and I don't think everybody concluded there wasn't a bad one. It was just they were made slightly differently for slightly different purposes. And that's one thing that you guys wanted to focus on as well with the launch of the Ranger is the specific purpose. Who is it intended for? And if you're looking to buy one, like what exactly is your goal with using it?
Yeah, we kind of went back to the design brief and just said, you know, with Brent, our product manager, and Pep and Steff, and just sat there and said, you know, what if we're going to make a design brief? What is it? You know, what boxes do we have to tick here? And kind of went back to it's got to be easy. And there's so many people, and the whole reason for this is because paddling's hard. And you're going a long way offshore. We've got to make this as easy as possible. So that was and it's got to be a non-technical wing that's simple to use. Anyone can pick it up, fly it, and it's most importantly super easy to get on foil. So in our opinion, the Ranger is one of the easiest wings on the market to get on foil. But at the same time, power, I mean,
having power and grunt to get you up on foil. So there's no point having something and you pull it out and you can't get up. So having something that is grunty. So we've gone for a deep profile and a fabric that is that has power per square meter.
I guess the other point we worked on really hard was durability. These things get scrunched up, they get thrown, they get tangled, the lines go over your nose, you've got foils, you're packing multiple ones in the bag, you're probably not rinsing, washing them out. Like, it was really choosing materials are going to be, some of the materials we've got on our wings should be a lot more durable than most of our competitors. I don't want to sound like a salesman, but that was just part of the brief, was like, how can we make them really, really durable, long lasting?
Bulletproof.
Bulletproof. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then the other one was cost. We looked at some of the competitors' pricing, and they're not cheap. And that's just for one. So we said, well, if anyone does a comparison and looks at the retail prices, you'll see that our pricing is really cost effective. Because we realized pretty quickly early on that you need more than one. If you've got two, your win range increases dramatically. If you've got three, fantastic. And the benefit is that it comes with a bag as well. So a lot of our competitors don't have those bags. You've got to buy the stash belt or find a way of using it. And we worked out that you could keep a smaller size. If you thought it was going to get windier, keep a smaller size in your backpack, or you thought the day was going to get lighter, you could have put a bigger size in your backpack, and then you've got one in your hand. And that's kind of where the concept of the bag came out from, wasn't it?
Yeah. So
there's a few things to unpack there, because your bag will fit 2 Parawings, right? And B, correct. You can also strap a wing to it, so you can do an upwinder, downwinder. You also have a little backpack that you can store some safety stuff in there as well. And it's water permeable, like it deflects water a little bit, but still, like, it'll bleed out. So those things, to be honest, I hadn't even thought of. So we start looking up just to learn a little bit more. Is just those are really good ideas and great backup features that if people are doing longer period trips with their wings, like I've had it, I do a 6K downwinder to the beach, and my the center strut's getting a little soft. So it's like, those things you never thought about before. The bag doesn't really get in the way too much because it's so small. Like, I do appreciate the thoughts that are going into these sports, right?
The bag concept came from Steff. It was like, it was as a safety device. This was something you could go winging, adventuring, whatever sports you're doing, go long distances, and then you had this small compact backpack that was your safety device.
Yeah, correct. And it was saying, as wing foiling was starting to grow, you could see people going from just little shore sessions or, staying close to a beach, but then people were like hopping multiple beaches, going kilometers and kilometers out. And it's kind of going where, I just kept on coming back to having a second device of needing power. And I thought about strapping it do you strap it onto the strut of the canopy itself? Or that doesn't help if your leash breaks and the whole thing flies off. So it's got to be on the person. And so we came up with a backpack.
We could take a look at it. Because I was in Maui for 2 months there, and a lot of people who are doing that Maliko run and all those other runs are all using backpacks. They all have devices synced up to them in case something bad happens. So I'm kind of curious as to the tech that you guys built into it.
Yeah, so I was surprised at how many iterations of bags we went through, to be honest. There were so many.
I lost count.
At times, it felt like we were designing bags, not parawings. Like, it was pulling my hair out. But essentially, it's a little bit bigger than a camel pack, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with the camel packs?
For biking and stuff.
You can easily get a couple in. So, if I'm flying a 4 in my hand, I would have a 3 and a 5 in here quite easily. And so that's just a buckle up the top that you fold down. There's a sleeve. I'll hold it this way. There's a pocket in here for extra storage, but it's got these 3 this webbing on the side there, so it allows you to, if you go out and do an upwind downwinder, or let's say you have your wing deflates, or you crash into it and you need to pack it up and pull out the parawing, then essentially you would put the wing up, fold it over, and then back down through these lower 2 straps, and then you could strap that. You're strapping the wing onto it, not into it. Yeah. And so that's just it means that it's behind you and it's keeping your arms free. And then you can pull the parawing out and use that as your...
And that Velcro front pocket's also fantastic for if you're doing long distances, energy bars, water, drinks, EPIRB, whatever else you want to put into there works really well for safety. And it's got the drains at the bottom, so the water's coming out. And if you don't like or need these straps, you can tuck them away. They've got little pockets on the inside here, so you can get rid of that. If you're not with the wing, you don't need to use it.
Yep. So in a nutshell, it's got a chest strap.
It's got a really nice soft material, so if you are wearing just, let's say, a shirt, and most importantly, it fits on over the top of your safety device.
Yeah, of your life vest or whatnot. So having it tight, but also different size people with, and then they add on a buoyancy vest. Then you need a bag that can go over that as well and easy to put on and off. So
super lightweight, dries quickly.
Yeah.
That would be technical to build, wouldn't it? A lot of variables.
Yeah.
It took some time.
And Dylan from Puerto Rico there, he's wearing it on his back. And so when he takes it out of the sky, he actually just puts it and jams it back down from it's still
interesting.
He's still wearing it on his back, right? It's So we didn't think about that type of stowing, but it's being used in ways that we hadn't thought about, which is awesome. And that's what I really like about this aspect of the foiling community.
What sizes? I know you guys kept the same color scheme. Your leading edge is black, which is nice because that was the biggest thing that I found that would help you relaunch, was the fact that the kite was the parawing was a different color, because that's quite difficult when you're all wrapped up in it and it goes underwater. Sure. But what sizes and stuff did you guys decide to go with, and why did you decide the specific sizes that you did?
Yeah. So we've got 2.2, 3.2, 4.2, and a 5.2. And the main sizes really is between a 3 and a 4. They're the 2 most common sizes. And we went down to a 2.2 mainly for younger, lighter riders. And kids, there's people that are getting into wing foiling and parafoiling, or parawinging, I should say, from quite a few different backgrounds. So we really wanted something for the youth to have something. And on that note, we actually Uli, one of the foil designers, we've both got kids that are around just over 2 years old. We were at the beach last weekend and gave the 2.2 parawing to Uli's boy, and man, it was hilarious. It was
this kid getting dragged along. Your feet can't keep up with your body. It's just running full speed. It was brilliant.
So that's a bit of a side aspect to it, but I've had that 2.2 out in over 50 knots. So it can, when the sea is raging, this canopy can get you up and get foiling, and it's the line length on that, or the bridle length, is 1.2 meters. So I think that's about 4 feet, which is a really easy reach to pull it back in. So when you're up on foil, that thing is like just it's so easy to manage because it's just so small. But obviously 2.2 is not a lot of square meterage. So anywhere that that you've got nuking winds, not necessarily 50 knots, but I mean, I'd probably use it anything above 30 knots, really. That was my plan to take it out on that particular day, but it just got a bit higher. And then, we just got the increments going up. And it just seemed like the 5.2 meter was the right size to
cruising
to stop at. There's quite a lot of grunt for the for these wings. So if we were to make a 6, they're it would be a lot of power that you just wouldn't necessarily need. But as the sport develops, that may become something that's
I mean,
needed.
just in comparison to others, what we have learned about the North Ranger is that it's definitely got a lot more bottoming grunt than most of our competitors. As we said before, trying to get it easy to get up on foil, we wanted all of our sizes have a lot of power for their square size. So, I don't think with that 2.2 meter, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people riding. It gets pretty hairy downwinding when it's 30, 40 knots, 50 knots. It's not easy. So I think the majority of sizes, as Steff mentioned, sort of 3.2, 4.2, and for those light wind locations, the 5.2 is pretty much as big as you want to go and still have a lot of power to get going in sort of, what are you, 8, 12 knots?
Yeah. Ideally, I'd like to see a white cap. If I see a white cap, I know I'm off.
Yeah.
Anything less than that, you're kind of a bit marginal. But that's And
then color-wise, like with just a differentiation?
Yeah, with the black leading edge, you mean? Or
Yeah.
And even just having the profiles. So you've got the canopy with the black leading edge and the green, lime green canopy, but then the profiles are white. And that I didn't think was going to be that important, but that's just another visual cue for when you're looking at the canopy, you know what you're looking at. So there's the canopies have three colors, and the leading edge is black. So by default, if the leading edge, if the top of the kite is already black, then you know what is left and right. We haven't color coded the left and right wingtips because
you don't need to.
Yeah.
So I mean, some people are saying, you need a different color on each side. You don't. If you have one color and it's on the leading edge, then you know what way is up. Yeah. That was our logic because we did it. We also went for that really bright lime green safety color because so many people are so far offshore. We really wanted to make sure it was easy to
why you did it.
Get rescue and be seen.
Call. Yeah, good call. Yeah. And then it's a really nice black leading edge too. Like it's thick enough that you can see it. And how did you guys decide how long to go with your bridles and lines? Is that just something that was kind of standard across everybody, or is everybody kind of tweaking it based on what they're looking for?
No, I mean, we wanted to, our design was really keep them as short as possible. If you go too short, obviously the wingspan starts to kind of concertina up. So we were cautious of that. The wing, so on the 5.2, the bridle length is 1.8 meters or 6 feet. So that's quite a manageable line or bridle length to be able to pull that back in. Obviously, the key part of this design is being able to deploy and retrieve it easily. So that became quite a key part of just understanding the limitations of the bridle lengths. But that's where we're at. So bridle lengths 2.2 is down at I think I said before 1.2 meters or 4 feet, up to 1.8.
Now, looking at who this Parawing, there's a bunch of them out there. So if you were going to pick an ideal client or an ideal target market for this one, who do you think that would be and why?
Yeah, great question. We in the design brief, we said this is got to be easy. So we're designing this for people who are getting into the sport. We're North. We're definitely working on some other designs. I think we've been pretty vocal about that in the future. But our primary focus for this one was ease of use. So anyone that wants to get into parawinging, downwinding, upwinding, they go, as I mentioned before, they go upwind well. But there are, benchmarking. There are competitors who are going upwind more efficiently. But I think you start to get into the realms of winging, that sort of wing free riding at that stage. And we really wanted to focus on solving the problem for us, which was, one, was rescue, but two, most importantly, was downwinding. Just being able to get out to the wind line, not have to use a paddle, and then do the downwinders and be able to get back to shore. So I think it, and people transitioning from winging to, a lot of people bought these downwind boards and tried the paddling downwinding, just said, wow, this is not easy, me included. And I think this is the hole that it fills. It's for those guys and girls who want to get out either on their downwind boards instead of a paddle. But I think the majority of the market for us is actually people who've got a bigger wing foil board. You don't need a specific downwind board for this. Yes, it helps to have like a midi or a mid-length board, but it definitely helps. But you can get going on your existing wing boards if they're big enough and if you can hold your body weight. So I think, entry level parawing, in sort of intermediate to beginner intermediate parawingers, and or advanced downwinders who are just looking for the best wing for downwinding. So I think it, with the short bridle, single skin, it gets you up on foil quickly. It's pack away, it's hands free, so you can ride endless ocean lumps and bumps. And it gives you that unrestricted feeling that you don't have when you've got a paddle or a wing in your hand. And you can use it, in lakes, harbors, oceans. We said before, you can use it on land. It seems to cover quite a wide range of the market.
Because when I was trying the one I was trying, there was a El Norte that came through, like a Norte, and I got a ride up to the school and stuff that I was hanging out at, and I was like, it'll be fine. It's 30, 35, whatever knots. And I was like, whoa, this is quite a bit for my little 3. But there's a big differentiation to make whether you're kiting and going across the wind and trying to go upwind, or if you're just looking to downwind. Now, if you're just looking to downwind, you want grunt, you want something to stow, you want something that's going to get you up on foil. Because I've spent some sessions where I was out there 2 hours and finally the wind picked up and I got going. But I was to the point where I had the winger come by. I said, "Are you actually?" I said, "This is all part of the testing process."
I'm not swearing underwater. Yeah.
But there's a technical difference between a short kite where you're kiting and something for downwinding, which I think is something that we should make a differentiation here. And if you're design brief and you're looking at making something more designed for downwinding, it's going to have different architecture than something else would, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely. I mean, this, as I said, does go upwind. What were your angles? You've been pointing. You've had some pretty good angles.
With harness line and stuff too,
being
right?
an engineer, there's a lot of GPS tracking and data. Yeah.
Yeah, for upwind performance, it was benchmarked with the BRM, the Maliko, the Series 1, the first one that came out. I think it's a 5.1, and it was the same, if not better, upwind with that one, and that's hooked in going out a couple of k's and coming back to the same park, same mark, and
same rider, obviously.
GPS,
Yes.
Yeah. So
we're definitely not saying it's only a downwinder, but it does seem to excel. So for all those advanced riders out there looking for one of the best downwind wings, then in our opinion, because of the stashability, it doesn't have the rods in the leading edge. Yeah. So it is the most stashable, one of the most stashable wings out there, especially with the shortened bridle lengths and the backpack. It makes it super easy.
And then also
free ride and go up what we call upwind and downwind, meaning you go upwind first and then come back to where you started.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the D-rib and then also look at how you guys are actually collapsing? Because that was one thing that took me a little while to figure out. I would actually grab the A lines instead of the B line. No, I would grab B lines instead of A, and then that would collapse. But kind of curious as to what you guys came up with.
I mean, essentially, you pack it up whatever way that you would like to.
You want to? Yeah, okay.
And it seems like there's 2 or 3 different variations of being able to pack it up. I think the most common one is when you're riding along and you head downwind, so the canopy
tension.
Yeah, the tension drops off, and then you can basically scoop all of the bridles up all in one go from the trailing edge, and then from there, then you stow away. I think the one thing I would like to say about stowing is what you've got to do is keep the bar separate from the bridles. If you send the bar through the bridles, it doesn't matter what canopy you're on, it doesn't matter even kiting from the 1980s. If you put the control system through the bridles, then you're going to have a bird's nest to contend with. So from there, that would be the main thing, is just keeping those separate. And so the best thing to do is to wrap the bar into the canopy and let the bridles roll in afterwards. So then when you're unrolling that's a bit more, you're kind of keeping them separate. But yeah, I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there. But the another way that I've been folding the canopy up is taking in the center. So on the A lines, the center 2 or 3 lines, and so that means that you're holding on to the leading edge, basically in the center, and that completely controls the canopy in a few ways that you're able to. I mean, from there you can easily ride, and the fabric is dangling and hanging around you, but you've got the 2 main control points, one the bar in one hand and the leading edge in the center at the other. And if you need to relaunch, you just relaunch the canopy again. So when you stow, you don't have to, like, there's stowing as in putting it away and putting it in a bag and never seeing it again until you fall off, or there's I'll just kill the power, and maybe after a couple of bumps, I just want to reignite it again. Like, there's different ways that you can use the canopy to. So you're
keeping one hand, let's say left hand on the bar. You're running your right hand along the A's all the way up to the top of the line where it meets the kite, and then letting everything loosen.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and from there, if you decide to then pack it away, then you can roll up from I would typically put the bar on the leading edge and roll up, so the canopy is basically folded in half with all the bridles on the center, or on the middle, and then basically rolling from leading edge to trailing edge. And that's because in the leading edge there's a bit of a pocket. There's pockets in there, right? So it allows, by rolling leading edge to trailing edge, allows air to escape. And if you're in the water and you're packing it up, if there's any water that's caught into any of these pockets, then that will also just flow out as well. So it's just about, there's the sport's evolving every week so almost, quickly. Right? So they're just a couple of methods. We're still developing and learning as well.
Learning every day. I mean, one of the big things we learned is less bridles is a good thing. And that's why Pep and Steff worked on what we call the D-rib technology. And the D-rib technology is effectively like diagonal support coming from the bridle points out to the wingtip. So if you go on the website, you can see it. But it basically gives you optimal load distribution, and it reduces the number of bridles that are required. So the canopy remains stable when depowering the bar. And Parawing becomes really responsive and reacts to that subtle steering input. These D-ribs really help with that performance.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's by having less, the D-ribs help distribute the load from the canopy onto the bridle, onto the bar. And the key part about bridles just to kind of point out the elephant in the room, the more bridles you have, the more drag you have. Okay, so it's not just bridle length, it's also bridle diameter. So every single bridle that we've put onto the canopy, it's doing something. If it's not doing something, we literally get our knife out and cut it. And if it still works, then we cut more. We keep cutting until it's not working, right? And so we're basically making sure that everything is functional, and that's where the D-ribs come in, that they allow the canopy to take tension but not have a bridle attached to it.
It's from paragliding. I mean, it's not our, it's for industry first for us, but it's not within the paragliding industry. We're really lucky that Steff and Pep have been so involved in the kite design side, and Pep's been involved in ram air kite design for forever, since he started. And we're very lucky that our factory is world leading manufacturing, the world's largest manufacturer in kites and wings, but also paragliders. It's a little known fact. So we're very lucky to have access to the factory, but more importantly, access to Pep's knowledge and experience with ram air kites and paragliding technology. So it's nothing new, but it's definitely transferring that technology of paragliding into the Parawing has been really big learning curve for us.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it on the website now. So you would literally just cut out that shape out of the bridle, is what you're saying?
Well, instead of having two bridles, you take one bridle away, and then from that bridle, you've got material that goes in a V.
Yeah.
And that V is like little mini
up
bridle
there
inside the leading edge, but it's made from material.
Oh, fancy.
And then that distributes the load along the leading edge. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm just looking at it on the website here, and you can hop over.
It's complicated to explain.
Yeah, no, it's fair. You can hop over to the North website and check this out, because it is pretty interesting to see how it's built along that leading edge. That's cool. And this depower tab, this is something that's quite interesting. How did that kind of come about?
That's from Papine flying the kite in really strong winds on the beach and going, I need to pack this up. How do I take this down? And that was so that tab is basically it's located, let's just say, halfway between the handle or the bar and the canopy.
On the leading edge bridles.
Yeah, on the leading edge A bridles. Yeah, correct. So basically, the bridles are, let's say, vertical, and this depower tab is running horizontal. So it's a handle that you can put your hand on, and you can pull in to kill the power, or get your next hand and get closer to the canopy. So not everyone has got a large hand span. So we're trying to think of different situations. I mean, it is pretty good when you are really powered up and you want to just sit down and have just chill out and sit like a bobbing duck. It's easy just to pull the canopy in, right?
Yes, true.
The cool thing is you can also hook it over the top of the handle as well, and then put your thumb over that, if that makes sense. So you reach forward, grab the depower tab, hook it over the top, and then with the hand that was on the bar, you just put your thumb across the top. Then you can run your hands down the leading edge to collect the bridles. So it's another way of killing power. Definitely a technique, and hard to explain to consumers. But podcasts like this, we can help people understand.
Go a little bit deeper into it, because that is one thing that I noticed is quite helpful when you're out there and it's pretty strong wind, is to be able to get that thing to relax and not just.
It's a lot of power, especially when you like most of your Parawing, one hand. The exhaustion levels are high. That's. I've got overpowered a couple of times and pulled the tab, and it's been so efficient. So helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
So if anyone's coming from a kiting background, it's not depower as in it's a controlled depower that the kite is still flying. It's
a kill.
It's to drop the power, and so you can.
When you get, sometimes if you don't, you can use it also, like if it's quite windy, you can just depower it as you get up onto the board, and then take it off again to power up. That's another technique that's pretty helpful.
Because that was one thing I found to be one of the hardest, was getting up in big wind and having this thing full powered above my head. I have good shoulders, but there's a lot of friends who have shoulders who have seen some different accidents. And that was one thing, because my friend reached out. She had popped both shoulders and said, what do you think? I said, I would wait a little while. So, and then what techniques can you use to be safer? Because I know depower for the V1s was quite difficult. They would collapse. So I'm curious to talk to you guys as well about seeing the evolution of depower for the Ranger, right, as well?
Yeah, depower effectively is just you've as you said, joystick. You get a certain level of depower, landing off your hand. Another way we found pretty helpful with distributing that load and that power is using a harness. And Steff kind of, for us, pioneered the concept of putting a harness line. We've got a really thin, low profile north harness line. And Steff attached that and found that as he was riding around, he's got his front hand on the bar, but quite often it's very difficult to bring your second hand. Your body's really twisted, especially when you're riding tow. So suddenly, when you've got the harness line, Steff's 2 points of contact was your hand on the bar, and the second was he'd reach up and he'd put his hand through the loop. And it sounds a bit crazy, but riding around, you were a lot more comfortable riding for longer periods of time with one hand in the bottom of the harness loop and one hand at the front.
Yeah. So it just allows if your main hand is on the bar, which is typically my downwind hand, then your upwind hand is just supporting the bar with the loop, and it just when you're getting up and going to go from displacement mode on the board and getting up, it felt like I was just stable. It was just giving my torso a lot more stability, and I didn't actually realize how much I was relying on it until I took a sample out that didn't have it, and that's when I really had the eureka moment. I was like, I'm going to put it on. I mean, I think the only time that maybe I wouldn't use it is if I was purely downwinding and I didn't want the extra kind of real estate hanging off the bar for when stowing and trying to have that package as small as possible. But I mean, for anyone that's wanting to crank up wind and do like 1 or 2 Ks upwind and then come back down, I would recommend it. But
just general free riding, upwinding, we highly recommend the harness loop, and especially in combination. We've got a new kind of industry. We haven't really dropped it to the public yet, but we've got a stash belt coming, and we won't go into details now. But it's a stash belt. And I wish we'd kind of retrospect. I wish we hadn't called it stash belt. I wish we'd call it stash hook or stash harness, because it's also got a really cool hook harness on the front, which means you not only can you stash it, but you can also it goes around your waist, but you can also hook into it. And that's Steff's you've been living in that thing, eh?
Yeah. It's 50% harness, 50% stow, and so having that with the options of being able to take
the load off your arms and just go further upwind with less fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and actually one technique I've done a few times is, let's say I had enough power to get going on the 5 meter, but so I'd go and use the 5 meter. I'd be powered up and I'd use that in the harness with the harness loop and go upwind. But when I wanted to come down and do a downwinder, I just wanted something a little bit smaller. So then I'd pack that. I'd use the 5 meter to go upwind, pack it away, and then use the 3 or a 4 meter to come back down. And so, I just find being powered up and really powered up helps. You can point higher. So then you're getting upwind faster.
Or if you're trying to get out to a wind line, or depending if you want to try and get out to the swell, just having 2 sizes makes such a big difference to be able to have that choice. How powered do you want to be? Because these wings, they've got a bit of depower, but in comparison to a kite or a wing, it's pretty limited. I'm sure it'll get better over the years. I mean, we're all working on that now, but that depower ability, But in the beginning, if you don't have a huge amount of depower, then there's a really good way to increase wind range and increase your upwind.
Yeah.
And you fly upwind, let me tell you, and you're going quick. It's pretty fun, actually. It's pretty fun. I found I love riding with the harness line. It was a go-to for sure.
Yeah, cool. There's people that absolutely despise them. There's some that like them. I mean, try it. If you don't like it, don't use it. That's totally fine. But
welcome to Earth.
For size, one of the I'm in a group a WhatsApp group that's talking. Recently been talking about sizes, what sizes that they should get, and the 3 and 4 meter are the most common sizes for people that are strictly doing paddle downwinding, and they're saying which size should I use? Because they would typically be out in, I don't know, anything from 15 to 30 knots. And they're also kilometers offshore, right? And they're really using it in case their paddle breaks or if the wind changes or whatnot. And they are typically landing on, say, like a a 3 and the 5, and that's because they're taking the 3 out because there's if there's enough wind, then they can use that to get up and get going. But they've also got the 5 in case the wind completely drops out, or if they just need to get up on foil, and they'd put up a large 5 meter in strong winds, but knowing that they'll just stow it straight away. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend taking the 5 out in more than 20 knots, but if you're kilometers offshore and it's the only thing that you've got in your backpack, then then that could be a size that works. But everyone's using these in different ways, and they're taking them out in different locations and spots, and they're having them for a different purpose. But I mean, maybe it's not best to take 2 sizes of. If you're doing a downwinder, taking a 3 and a 4 probably isn't that great of an idea, because they're too close of power. You're either going to have wind or you're not. So that's kind of some of the downwind guys. That's what the process.
Make sure you got a good forecast app.
Yeah,
yeah, that too. Yeah, and a good phone or something, or whatever, and a watch to be able to have that. But we didn't touch so far on the kind of material that you guys used and why you chose that particular material. Because I know you were mentioning longevity. Because one thing in is schools, like not very many people I know are starting to teach this sport. But if they're going to buy 2-3 parawings and stuff and have their instructors kind of help people learn a little bit more about this, could we dive a little bit into that? Yeah,
so it's a 40-gram fabric. It would be similar to what people would be familiar on a kite surfing kite. It's a ripstop nylon. And I think one of the key features that we were looking for when we were going through the different fabric samples was having a really good coating. And so if you've got the fibers that are, if you have a close look at a ripstop nylon, you've got fibers running at 2 different orientations, and without the coating, it's the material can be quite porous. And as old kites get older, then anyone would be familiar with porosity and how much that can decrease over time. But essentially, we've gone for one that's got a really strong or a solid coating on it, so it gives bang for it's powerful per square meter. So
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so if you think of it like holding up a sieve in the ear, right, and the ear's just going to go straight through it, then you're not going to get a lot of power out of that area. So
does it keep it a little bit more waterproof as well, so it'll be better in lighter wind? Because one thing I found is that if it gets wet, then obviously you just need a smidge more power. It doesn't impact much, I found, in the water, but especially in super light winds.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yep, no, absolutely. And when you put the kite up in the air, one of the first things I do is give it a good rattle, a good shaking, like a good throttling, really, to shake off any water. I mean, the canopy, let's say, is it weighs a kg. If it's wet, it'll easily be 2-3 kg, right? So kites don't actually want to be wet. The performance just goes backwards. So yeah, two tips for launching would be give it a good shake and cast your eye over all of the bridles, making sure there's no snags anywhere over the bar, over the any bridle intersections. So yeah, there's a couple of wee things that could help.
I guess tips. Another one is boards. You know, it's
boards, foils.
About boards is you know, downwind boards they're long. They're definitely a little more difficult to manage, and they track a lot more. So we found pretty quickly we moved on to the midi, especially as a 96 litre midi started off on, and everyone's progressed down to smaller sizes now. But just having that slightly narrower, shorter board with less swing weight means you can really surf the swell a lot more efficiently. Yeah. We're not saying you can't do it on the wing boards, because you definitely can, but it the mid lengths definitely help.
It's easier.
It does. And a downwind board, the only disadvantage from a downwind board, so I'm saying like 8 foot long plus type thing, is when you're sitting there. I'm often sitting on the board rodeo styles, looking downwind, so the nose is downwind, and you're flying this kite, and if it comes down, or you can end up riding the board into the canopy. Yep. And the longer nose that you've got out in front of you means that it's going to get caught on the bridles, or the board ends up literally riding through the bridles. And it's just harder to reach out around the nose of the board to peel the bridles off the board. So that's where we started going down to a midi size board. And for me personally, I'm 85 kg, or I think it's 120 pound. And I'm on a 96 litre, and it just gives me a big wind range of where I can use that. But yeah,
definitely helps with those boards. And then foil wise, you can use the downwind foils, or as you said, Luke, the SF of the surf range. Right. So the benefits of surf range is for those shorter, slower swells. If you're on a lake, or if it's just not, it's a lighter day with slower moving swell, the SFs really give you that quick, easy lift up onto foil. So the SFs, or the surf range surf foils, we definitely recommend those in the North Range. And then the downwinders, the downwind wings, the DWs, for those higher speed, faster moving, windier days with bigger swell, where you really need that glide and efficiency to kind of stay on the bigger lumps and bumps. It's oh man, it's been a journey. I know, Luke. I know timeline. I can see you on the video looking at us on the timelines. We can keep talking about this for hours. But,
it's awesome. I'm happy that you guys were able to come on, and especially time zones, right? Like, I have a hard time with time zones, but you guys are a date.
You have a hard time getting on the wrong plane.
Yeah, I just had. An episode this morning, and we just recorded one this morning, and he was like, I don't think I've ever had that happen before, where she's like, sir, it's just like a Hollywood movie, right? Your plane just taxis and takes off, and you're like, oh, well. And they were surprised how happy I was to stay another day. I said, it's Bon Air. Like, I get to go swim and eat. Like, how bad can this be? It's free. You're extending my thing for free. But anyways, thanks guys for coming on, and thanks for sharing and introducing this. And, I'm looking forward to see the evolution of this entire sport and see where it goes. And
so exciting.
It is exciting, and I love the fact that we have a lot of companies just helping more people access, and with a bunch of different tools. And the bag is, as I had never seen that before, and the safety considerations, especially with people doing a lot more offshore things.
I think that's amazing. People underestimate the safety rescue aspect. I mean, if I'm winging now, if I'm doing any long distance, and I throw a Parawing on my back, it just gives you that little bit of extra. Inflated structures. I've lost count of how many wings I've landed on, burst, broken, torn, small holes, whatever it may be, foiled through the canopy. It's just like, it can potentially be a lifesaver. And we've had a few friends, you were stuck under the bridge, and we've had all sorts of missions where we're like, man, this Parawing's really ticking the box.
Yeah. No, it's good.
One other thing there would be, just because you've got one on your back doesn't, or you've got to make sure that you can actually go and use it, right? So make sure that you spend the time, even if you're going wing foiling and you're just using this as a backup source of power, make sure that you actually know how to use it, and that you can get up on foil, right? And know the conditions of what works and what doesn't. So just put some time and effort into it. But I think most people, once they know how to foil, they like to learn different aspects of power, be it with a paddle or a foil drive, or
I mean, look how many ways there are to foil now. You've got tow foiling, you've got foiling behind a boat, you've got a paddle, you've got a new Parawing, you've got a wing, you've got a kite. Am I missing something? Pumping. You don't need anything to foil, you can just pump.
Or the dock starts.
The dock starts. It's like the amount of ways to power
foiling. For the motor guys.
Yeah. All that stuff. I think I counted the other day is about 8 different ways of powering yourself onto foil. It's quite different compared to kiteboarding, where there's one power source and it's a kite.
That's exciting though. Like I think it's important to just come up with these different creative ways, but it's also, you might catch 10% of your market here, 30% of your market there, 50% of your market there. Like, it's fun to just give people a variety of different things.
Honest, we're not really ever going to make any money out of the Parawings. If I'm brutally honest, if I put my sort of brand director's hat on, this is more of a passion project, and having amazing people like Steff and Pepane with his experience and Brent, who we just kind of geek out on different ways to ride the ocean and the swell and the waves. So it's exciting times.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for catching up with us. And we're getting out to New Zealand, Mike. We're going to come right after you guys. And that is before...
I've got the jet ski's just been serviced. It's ready to go.
Oh, it's perfect.
So we can go on some adventures. And,
we can run away from some New Zealand sharks. There we go.
They stay away from it. They're full. There's too many fish here.
Yeah, they're friendly sharks, mate. They're friendly.
Yeah. That's what they all say.
They're like the Aussie ones.
All right, guys. Hey, it was great to catch up with you both. And we're going to chat.
Thanks, Lukey.
All good.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, buddy.
All right. Bye, everybody.